Yeah, so this is, like we discussed last week, right? This is supposed to be like, an interactive session where we kind of like go over, oh, okay, no, that's fine. AY, so all we did last week was, a bit of intro, I gave some advice. I spoke briefly about the program structure, so what we discussed was just like a recap in case there's like anyone else who wasn't around last week, right? Um, so a quick recap of that call was, me just doing an introduction of myself and getting to know everyone that was on the call. I think we had about 14, maybe 15 people on that call. So getting to know everyone, kind of gauge like their experience levels and, talking, yeah, this is week two, and talking briefly about the program structure. Um, Then we took a poll around what time would be, because the last call held on a Friday. So we took a poll around um to pick a time for when the subsequent ones would happen. And everyone, well, not everyone, but most people voted Saturday. And then we agreed for 12 noon. And just in terms of like expectations, uh I also kind of like explained that these virtual sessions and maybe even the ones would be having physically, which I'll talk about later, they are not meant to be classes. All right. They are meant to be more of like a collaborative sessions where, we talk about um the course material that was consumed over like the past week, and I explain whatever concepts wasn't clear to basically everyone because everyone is going to be learning at different paces and so everyone's going to be moving at a different pace and everyone is kind of like on a different track, right? So some people are on front end beginner, some are on front end intermediate, some might be on a back end beginner, some might be on back end intermediate, right? And so and we don't have the time, right? The program length is not long enough to cover, you know, front end to back end from, beginner to intermediate for everyone, right? So what we decided was the course materials are, on Alt School, and everyone was basically going to, um, follow through with those course materials. And when we come on this course, what would happen is we'll talk about, the progress for each person on each track. And I would go over, any concepts from, the videos that everyone has watched over like the last 1 week, stuff that were not clear, questions that we might have. I also said that, these sessions don't have to be restricted to the scope of the 3MTT program and curriculum. So it could be that, you're working on a side project, you're taking an entirely different course for front end or back end or whatever. There's something that was, that you need clarity on, or there's like an issue you're facing. Those are things that we could tackle um in this session. All right. And now that's not to say that these sessions cannot be classes, but I genuinely don't think that it's going to be the best use of our time. Right. This session happens, once a week, and we have just about, you know, 8 of them before the end of the program. So there's, you know, not much that we can cover in um 8 once a week classes. Then if you've been active on the group, you'd have seen my lengthy message, about um everyone's programming journey, right? I use the reference about going to the gym, right? If you are going to the gym to, build mass, build up your muscles. If you go once a week, and you do, 3 hours, right? Which is equivalent to what this session is. It happens once a week, somewhere between 2 to 3 hours, depending. And someone else is going, every day and they're putting in just 1 hour daily, right? Um, the odds that, that person is going to make a lot more progress than you is significantly higher. Why? Just because they have more consistency. So, whether you're a beginner, you're intermediate, you're trying to level up in this, path, right? You have to show up daily, right? I know everyone has, most people probably have like a secondary job that they are doing, right? So, realistically speaking, you might not just be able to devote all of your time to, learning how to code or following through with materials. But even if it's, one day, right, or 2 days, sorry, 1 hour or 2 hours, in a day that you can squeeze out, right? Just try to put in that work every day. So take me, for example, I've been at this for, a couple of years now. I've worked for a bunch of companies at this point, in and out of, Nigeria, in the US, in Europe. So I would, consider myself, maybe a senior engineer, right? Depending on who you ask. But like every day, I still try to consume, knowledge about something, even if it's just watching a YouTube video, about something that's I probably didn't know before, or maybe on something that I knew before, but just refreshing my understanding of that, topic. I just try to get new knowledge in because it keeps, my mind sharp, right? When it comes to everything software development, I listen to podcasts, and it doesn't have to always be technical stuff, right? Sometimes I listen to podcasts about, developer productivity, right? So how can I, best optimize my day, to make sure that I'm getting the most value out of it. But you just have to show up, right? Repeated exposure is very key for something like this, and I also kind of like talked about, you know, how it's a financially rewarding, career path, but you definitely have to put in the work, right? You have to put in the work. It's not a um get get rich, get rich quick, career option. But if you do put in the work, there are like a ton of opportunities in and out of the program. And I think lastly, the other thing I said was this program is short, right? I heard that you guys started in December, give or take. So maybe you have like 2 months plus left. So your focus should be, you know, thinking beyond the program, right? Building relationships beyond the program. A girl, maybe like 2, 3 people like sent messages during the week to say, oh, before the program, this is what they've been up to. You know, can can they get like courses and materials beyond the program? And I've even gone as far as, someone that wanted a Udemy course that I didn't have. I went as far as, buying it for that person just because it showed me um, something that he had done before, right? And how he's trying to like level up and go to like, the next step. So your goal should be um building relationships, both with other members um of your cohorts and class and you know the facilitators as well. That would basically, go beyond just the 3MTT, program, right? This program, like I mentioned, someone, that made, complaints and I kind of like made it clear that this program is meant to help you jumpstart, right? And if you've already jump-started, so maybe you're already doing some HTML, CSS, JavaScript, or if you're a backend person, you're already building a few things, before you joined, then this program is for you to network and level up. So everyone here, even though we are all in the software development track, is essentially here for different reasons and different goals. Yeah, so for those that were not in the session last Friday, that was kind of like the highlights. We didn't go into anything particularly technical, right? Yeah. So this week, like I said, this is supposed to be interactive. Everyone is supposed to be in an environment where they can unmute and speak. And then we talk about, how the videos are going so far, what everyone has been able to achieve, if there are issues, topics, concepts that we don't understand, I would, dive into VS Code, share my screen, and we would, solve all of those things together, before going into the, like next week's stuff. So, is there anyone so far who, so, okay, let me first ask, is there anyone who hasn't started watching or consuming the coursework? Is there anyone who hasn't started consuming the coursework? So, that's would be to imply that would be sorry, that would imply that we all started with the coursework from old school. I'm free to unmute and speak. Cool. Okay, cool. Now, does anyone have like questions from what they've consumed so far, right? Things that they need clarity on, whether again it's the beginner track, the intermediate track, the advanced track, front end, back end, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, something from the videos and lessons that you've consumed so far that you probably need some extra explanation on. So silence on this session essentially means that we're good, right? And if nobody has any issues or question, there's probably no need for the call, and we can call it a day and go. So I'm expecting this to be interactive, please. I didn't just come. Is this not a TED Talk?
Hello.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
yeah, I can.
Okay. Good afternoon. Actually, I have some few questions I would like to be addressed with.
Yeah, go on.
Faculty of. Sorry, please. Hello.
Yeah, go on.
Where are you? Where are you?
Yeah, Harry, go ahead.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody.
Yeah, good
So,
afternoon.
thank you very much, Mr. Isaac. For me, I'm not too comfortable with the approach, yeah, for this virtual class with all you said. I don't think I will be cool with that. Because looking at the material we have from ALT, I think it's more of theoretical approach. Perhaps I've not really gone for that to
So
probably get to discover.
how much of the material have you consumed so far?
I'm still working on front end close to OOP. For me, I think it's more of theoretical approach they are giving that, and one thing about coding or programming, it should be more of hands-on practical application. Yeah, so you apply what you are learning. I get to learn functions, get to learn data structures, array, and the rest of them. It's just theoretical knowledge I have, but then how to apply it and be able to solve problem with it. For me, I'm just suggesting this virtual class should be based on that. And maybe we can try to structure things within us, get serious, active ones, serious-minded ones. If we are really going to get much out of this, because if you would want to be attending to questions randomly, then the flow might not be effective enough. I mean, I'm just suggesting if it could be possible, we I don't know if it could be possible we just split ourselves into two groups, and though there would be a general review from you, then each subgroup we can be having an assignment, a small project, so everybody can fit in. If you are intermediate, you are a professional, you are a beginner, you can still fit in. So each smaller teams, maybe teams of 2, 3, can assign a project or assignment, something to work on. Then the following week you can make a review of that and get to see what we've been able to come up with. So each of these tasks should be based on what we've covered so far. It's a self-paced, looking at what we have online. Some persons might be very behind, some persons might be ahead. But then on an average, we should be able to say, okay, 50% considering the month we have and the week we have. So this tax will be enough, or this tax we do, they should be able to handle this. So I believe that would be much more effective. When you are done with your explanation, taking questions, then you can drop something for us to work on. Then the following
Okay.
week, we can get to submit that. So you make a review and probably get to explain better because you've worked with companies before. So you know best practice. Yeah, it could be better that way than we just coding dirty as maybe self-taught. I mean, applying what we've
Thank
learned. Yeah.
you. So let's address like some of the things that you pointed out, right? Which are you made some really, really good points. So let me start from um the first one, which is the coursework being purely theoretical, right? Now I would, I would be like the first person to I agree that the curriculum on old school is not, the most extensive. All right, but I disagree that, it is completely theoretical. So for example, you mentioned that you have started with, the front end track. You've done HTML, you've done CSS, and right now you're in the intro to JavaScript section somewhere around OOP. Right. Now, for the CSS section, where you covered CSS layouts and Flexbox, did you, code along during the Flexbox session?
Oh yeah. So in that regard, it's not like we don't code along. We code along, but we are just getting to know how it's like a puzzle or piece by piece. So I know how this works. I know how this works. I mean, putting everything together and working on a project. That's what I mean.
Oh,
It's not
no, no.
like
So
we are not seeing
definitely,
the code. Yeah, we gain
yeah.
access. We even have access to link. We get the codes. Code along too. For me, I don't really think that's
So
enough.
that's cool, right? I just wanted to confirm that.
Hello? Hello, sorry. Hello.
Sorry, Chinedu, can you stay muted? Raise your hands and then you would be called.
I'm really not even getting how to really assess this very well. That's why I'm not really.
So, Yeah, sorry, Harry. So what I was saying is, I just wanted to confirm that, we're not just consuming the videos like Netflix, right? We would definitely get to the point of, doing class assignments, right, and projects, and that milestone is after, everyone, or at least, like you said, on average, everyone has covered at least HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, because that's like the minimum requirement to build anything, right? There's only so much you can do with HTML on its own. There's only so much you can do with, CSS on its own. Let me share my screen. So just let me know when you can see my screen.
Still try call them again because they need to
Can you see
also.
my screen? Can you guys see my screen? I'm currently on YouTube.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
All right. Now you're looking at, the page for YouTube. All right. There is like a million things, that are happening here. Sorry, Ari, you can unmute since this is me answering your question. You can interject. So there's like a million things happening here. Right. Now on this page, there is the YouTube logo. There is a button. There are, icons and text, images, and different, interactions that are happening. But at the core, at the core of it, right, is still just, a bunch of HTML and CSS styling and all that stuff, right? So, you know, everyone needs to at least digest the fundamentals. So let's say, this week, right, you've covered, intro to HTML, right? Let me go to this. So you've covered intro to HTML and, basic elements, images, comments, and all that stuff. And then we come on this call and, because we are in a hurry to get to, some of all the practical stuff, we say, okay, let's design, this YouTube page in HTML and CSS. And suddenly you're looking at, 5,000 lines of CSS code. Don't you think that that would be overwhelming for people, right? This is just week 2. So, in my own opinion, I think that, before, as long as, you're coding along, right? And, you're not just watching the videos like a movie, I feel like we're good. By the time everyone gets to, sorry, at least week 4, where you've covered like the fundamentals of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Yeah, then we come on the call, we spend 1 hour, 2 hours, we design, a simple web page, to cover everything that's been taught in, in those sections. And then, we're good to go, right? But imagine I jump on this call, right? And, we just dive directly into coding, right? In the second week of, people doing the program. Trust me, you will definitely be overwhelmed by a bunch of the things that would be going on, right? So, which is why the focus for, the first months is to make sure that everyone is putting in the work to consume the materials. And I'm coming here to provide clarity on any concepts, right? And I'm not, when I say, provide clarity, I don't just even mean answer questions in theory. Like if you listen to me earlier, I said that, so let's say somebody says, oh, I watched the video on, CSS Flexbox, but I don't completely understand how it works. I'm not just going to, give you theoretical answers. I'll dive into, my VS Code and we'll talk about Flexbox together. I'll write, Flexbox code. I'll explain Flexbox code and just make sure that, those concepts make sense to everybody, so that by the end of week 3 to 4, right, we're doing our first mini project. People are not just overwhelmed by, what's going on, because you just glossed through the videos. So I hope that kind of like makes sense, if that addresses, the first parts of your question, Harry.
Okay, sorry, I'm coming in. Perhaps, I don't know, following your own calendar, but for me, this month 2, the second month, and the third week, yeah, third week, we just concluded the week 3. So next week is going to be week 4, if I'm not mistaken, but this month 2.
Okay, so let me ask a question to everyone. How many people have gotten to what's it called? How many people are done with the first 4 weeks of the curriculum? So you've covered HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Raise your hands. Okay, I'm seeing only AY. And AY, have you been writing code before this program? Like, even if it's just, watching videos, minor practices. Exactly. There's literally nobody, that is a complete beginner, right, that would have consumed all that material, already, from HTML to CSS to, to JavaScript. So you are working based off the assumption that, you're already in OOP, right? So, probably most people are already at that base, which is why I made emphasis to the fact that, everyone would be moving at different paces, right? Even when we, eventually start to do, maybe some, what's it called? Some projects, right? It would have to be different. Because I don't think that everyone would be, at the same level to work on a different project. So you can see someone's message, Omotunde's message in the chat. Right. So for most people, this is like their second week. Right. So I definitely think that, it would be overwhelming for all these people, if we just, dive in and, already we're building, full web pages when they haven't even properly learned, what Flexbox is, they haven't got into that section. So for you that you've got into that, that point, all right, like I said, yes, sorry, I'll address that tomorrow Sunday. So for you that you've gotten to that point, like I said, people that have maybe already started stuff, right? They've reached out, separately to say, oh, I'm not, just getting into HTML. This is what, I'm already up to, so what extra thing, should I be doing? But for the most part, this program would be treated as a purely, beginner program, just because majority of people there are beginners, right? So by week 3, 4, when everyone has, digested a bit of the HTML section and the CSS section, and maybe some parts of the JavaScript section, then when it comes to this course, we would be having a couple of, peer coding sessions. Now, as regards the other thing you talked about, which is, peer coding, right? Doing group assignments. That is what the physical, doing group projects, that's what the physical meetups would be for, right? So the physical meetups are going to be holding on Fridays, starting from, coming Friday. So I might join that session virtually. So because I'm not in Lagos. So I might join virtually, I might not, but there would be predefined group project and group assessments that everyone would be working on based on everyone's level. So basically, group everyone into like group of threes, and group of 3 people or group of 4 people, based on similar levels. So for you, for example, you're in the JavaScript track, you probably, pair with someone else like, Ayomide that has also covered HTML, CSS, and JS, and maybe 1 or 2 other people that are also in that level, and you guys would have, a different project from, those people that are maybe just, starting HTML and CSS. Right. So when you guys meet in that at the center on Friday, right, everyone in a group would basically be working on those projects together, and on the call, we could review, answer questions, and do all of that. So yeah, is it Kazi Cage?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's it.
Okay.
Okay, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Just like the guy said earlier, like most of us now, just like you said, actually, most of us are beginners to this thing. And me getting introduced to this, I thought initially it was going to be like more of like a physical class. But then getting towards along the line, I noticed it was going to be like this video that were posted and you watch and move along. And for me, I'm not the type of person that just by watching videos I can get things like that. You have to
Yeah.
practicalize stuff. So and
Yeah.
along, I asked some question because of I think the first there was this YouTube link. It was kind of like a Zoom meeting, like that's
Yeah.
like about 7 people that were on screen and they were talking about some things and some asking some questions. And someone
Yeah.
then mentioned that okay, how is the process going to be? That was when they mentioned okay, you have facilitators and also physical meetups. Okay.
Yeah.
So for this issue happen, for this one happen, I was actually in Lagos, so I was looking forward to the meetups and all. But then
Okay.
school came and I had to like move to a different location. Okay.
Oh, so you're
So
not in Lagos right now.
yeah, for the Lagos meetup now, I'm not in Lagos. That's one of the
Okay.
problems. I was hoping it could be addressed. The last person that I talked to said I should like send a mail to the team and see if there's anything they can do,
Anything
probably
I
to
can do. Yeah.
switch me to the meetup in this state that I am. Because right now I'm currently up north. So that one is one part.
Where
And
are
the
you?
other one,
What state are
I'm
you
in
in?
Kano at the moment. I'm in Kano State.
Okay.
Okay. And the other one now is like writing code and all these things. And for me, since I'm a beginner, like the journey has like everything is kind of like new to me. I might
Yeah.
watch a video from old school and probably I feel okay, this one is like kind of like not understanding clear to me. Sometimes I go to YouTube, even my social platforms, I've been trying to like connect to people that are on various that are
Yeah.
like that are along this journey and even meet some people, okay, this one tell me, okay, this is how it is out. So that's why my progress is actually slow. I'm not like I know that they gave a period like okay, you have to finish the steps, but since the type of person I don't feel like I don't like I don't feel like if I should just do this one and just move to the next one, trying to cover up my steps, I don't think I will understand everything. So that is why my progress is actually slow at the moment. I'm not at the pace of others that I think I'm still at the HTML phase for
Okay.
now. I'm still at the
Okay.
HTML
So
phase. Like on
yeah.
the days that I'm free, I talk to my friend and okay, he put some things to me, and that's how I'll be getting through with others, all this one now. So I don't know if there is any way, like anything you can tell me that will help out in this journey, and also if you can help me as regards to the meetup. I don't know if there's anything
Yeah.
you can do about that one also.
Okay. Okay. So let me start from your first question. Being, you aren't the type of person that, would generally just watch videos, right? You maybe you need a physical class. right? Where you need a structured environment where you would, sit down and basically have someone teach you,
Yes,
right?
interaction.
Um, yeah, that's perfectly fine, right? So me, I'm a self-taught software engineer. I never went to any boot camp. I never, attended any school. Yeah, you know, completely self-taught. Even back then, like, so this was maybe 6 years ago, Udemy, all these boot camps, they were not as popular as they are now, right? So it
Yes,
was even like mostly books, YouTube videos, transport structure, then, having mentors, right, that would guide me and say, oh, leave this framework, right? Don't learn this framework. This is what's popular, or this is what you should focus on, right? And even despite having those people, I still needed to like know how to, you know, filter the advice that they were giving me, because it's not every advice you get, you take.
yes, yes.
Now, that's perfectly understandable, but I want to encourage you, right? And the reason why I want to encourage you is because in software engineering, most of the time, right, you're not writing code. Most of the time, you're trying to think about how will this thing work? How will this problem be fixed? You know, um, trying to basically figure out the best way to approach something. And what does that process look like? You are on Stack Overflow, you are reading documentation somewhere, you are, doing all these things. Now, let's even assume that, so I'm talking outside the scope of this program. Let's assume that you find a boot camp that is everyday classes, right? Everyday classes. I mean, that would probably, do you a lot more good. But in this program, right, they teach you HTML, CSS, JavaScript, at the end of, maybe some React as well, since you are doing front end. At the end of it, there's a mini project, right? And let's say that mini project is called, maybe that mini project is a weather application, right? So an app that you can go to, you interact with the backend and you can see what the weather is in different locations. That gives you, the basic understanding of all these topics. Now, let's say, you apply for, an internship or your first job or something and you get in, and then you are in a completely, different type of project with a different, type of, in an entirely different industry. What would you do at that point? Would you look for a different program or a different set of classes that is focused on in this new industry and this new type of application that you are building? So essentially the point I'm trying to make is I've been doing this thing for 6 years at this point, right? And for every project that I've ever built, every single one, there is always something about that project that I have never seen before, that I don't know how to do. I don't know how to go about it, and I don't know how to solve, right? But I always go into that project knowing that I have strong, understanding of the fundamentals and how it applies to this specific project. I'm going to figure it out. So throughout my career, I've had the opportunity of working in like entirely different industries. I've done e-commerce, I've done logistics, I've done ed tech. Funny enough, I think I've worked at maybe 3 of the biggest ed tech platforms in Nigeria at this point. ULESIN, Edukoya, currently at Freeland. I've done, some fintech stuff. I've done VC and accounting, right? And for each one, right, for every job I've gotten, you know, there's just, because the industry is different, the type of application that we're building there is very different. So usually, half of my time I'm spending it trying to understand, okay, how is this one different? What are the things about this industry that are different from, everything I've ever built before? And I basically sit down and I figure it out, right? It's not because I have a special brain, it's not because ridiculously smart. It's just because, it gets easier over time. And I've built that habit over time, right? So yeah, having a structured environment is really good. It's very, very important. I'm not even trying to say it's not important. It is very, very important and it would help. But for this career, it's rare because it's not like tailoring, right? Where, you go and, do an internship with, a fashion designer and, you basically just dive into, oh, I'm learning how to cut clothes today in different shapes and tomorrow I'm learning how to use. Yeah, it's more of mental work. It's more of mental work. So you just have to, learn how to build a habit, right? The first time you learn HTML, it's going to be confusing. The second time you learn it, it's going to be confusing. The third time you learn, it's going to be confusing. And then, which was why I used the gym analysis because it's so similar, right? So what's your goal? Your goal is to get 6 packs, right? You go to the gym today, even if you work out 20 hours, you have a gym instructor that's guiding you, helping you. Your 6 packs would not show that day. It would not show the second day. It would not show the third day. But why? You have to keep going. You have to keep going. You have to be, even if your gym instructor doesn't even show up at some point, you know that, okay, when I get to the gym, I'll use the treadmill. When I use the treadmill, I'll, bench 30 kg, 4 reps, all that stuff, and I'll keep going, keep going, keep going. And one day, right, one day, you just look in the mirror, your 6 packs will be there. And somebody will ask you, how long did it take you? That's a common question that I get asked a lot. How long did it take you before you properly understood, HTML and CSS or JavaScript? And the answer is there's no timeline. So it's even up to now. There are things about JavaScript I don't know. That, I try something out, I run into an error, and then I fix the error, and I'm like, oh, so that's how this works, right? Because one day, you keep showing up to the gym, and one day you look in the mirror and your packs are there. And people will ask, how long did it take you before you built this body? And you can't give them an answer. Why can't you give them an answer? It's because it is not the result of, one day's job. It's the output of, showing up daily, and, that result is the accumulation of all those work that you're putting in. I currently write 4 languages, and let me tell you, a funny story of how I learned React. I started out as a backend engineer, right? And I was doing backend. Why did I do backend first? It was because at the time I felt like I didn't have the eye for design, right? So I thought I wasn't going to be good, with front end. So I started out doing backend and I was writing APIs and doing databases and, all those things. And at this point, I was like 2 years, into my career. And someone was beside me, a friend, and she had a bug in her React code. So she had this issue she was trying to fix. And I was like, okay, let me just look at it. Let me see if I can help. Even though I don't really know front end like that. I just know HTML and CSS and JavaScript, but I've never seen React code. And I take a laptop and I look at it, and I could help her solve the issue. And I'm like, okay, so this is how React is, and that's how I got into writing React, right? So I never had to watch React tutorials. I never had to go to a React class. I was just able to pick up this thing, because of solid understanding of the foundations. And I didn't build the solid understanding of the foundations from, you know, um, one day or 2 days or 1 month or 2 months or 3 months or even 6 months. So I hope that, this I hope that this makes sense to you.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I don't think there's because there's nothing that we can cover in a class that there is no better video or better, there are even like more quality videos on YouTube than you find on the old school platform. Right. So there is, a ton of quality materials out there, better than you would get from, a physical class. And it's going to even be rare. Because even if you go to a university and go and do an entire computer science program, it's still not going to be, a physical class of purely practical, right? Everything you would know, or 80% of what you would know, would have to come from you basically sitting down and consuming materials and consuming materials. So what I want you to do is, treat the old school curriculum as a structure, right? As a structured guide. And I'm always here to. That's why I said, this week, it doesn't matter what your pace is, right? You are currently in HTML, that's perfectly fine. Everybody's life is different. Everybody's responsibilities is entirely different. So, we can't all move at the same pace, but there's something you watched over the past week that doesn't make sense to you. Bring it to this call and we would solve it. And it doesn't even matter if everyone else has passed you. There might be things in your question that they won't know. And from answering your question, we would have answered or provided them with more clarity. So, don't feel bad that you haven't gone, you haven't gone far, right? Just be true to yourself, right? And your own journey. As for the last thing, your program, the physical location, you say you're currently in Kano. I would ask the program managers, if there is, a way to migrate you, right? But if I'm being honest with you, right, completely honest, it's not going to do much good, in helping you move faster. Those physical classes are once a week, and they are maybe 2 hours or 3 hours maximum. There's only so much you can cover into 2 hours or 3 hours physical class once a week. It's not going to get you anywhere in your journey. It's not going to get you anywhere. All right. So if you want to, push, right, you have to be able to sit down every day, and follow through, right? Bit by bit, bit by bit. Today you learned about HTML button. When you are done with the video, go and create an index.html file, create a button. Right. Tomorrow you learned, when you get to CSS, let's say, oh, this is how you apply background color. Try it out. It doesn't make sense to you. Watch the video again. If after the third time it doesn't make sense to you, come to the group and tag me and say, I just watched this video. Right. So nobody has utilized that group. I'll just quiet there. Right. Come to the group and say, I just finished this video on introduction to CSS. And it's not even making sense to me at all. I can't understand it. It doesn't even matter if it's during the week. I can find, 30 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and I'll say, let's jump on a call. And I'll try to explain these things to you. All right. So, we can't just come, to the call and just, directly jump into classes when everyone is at different points in their journey. We have to try to be empathetic and carry everybody along, right? Because if we come and I just open VS Code now and I'm saying, okay, intro to HTML. The people that have done HTML and CSS and JavaScript before, they'll be bored. And if I come and, just dive into, doing some practical work, the people that are just starting, they'll be overwhelmed. So we have to find balance. We have to find balance. So I don't know if that answers all your questions, Kazikage.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let me appreciate it.
Okay. So you can reach out to me, just send a DM.
Yes, I will do that. I will do that.
All right. Harry, your hands are back up. Chinedu, do you have any question? You're unmuted. Yeah, Harry.
All right, please, I'm still confused. I'm trying to strike a balance because this program is meant to last for 3 months, and
Yeah.
the old school, the course was released November ending. So the whole of December, we worked on month 1. So this January, I believe this month too. So if you're counting based on week 2, by next month, this program should be ending or first week of March. So I believe we must have gone through
Okay.
month 1.
So again, right, the program is the calendar is a bit disorganized, which is nobody's fault for a lot of people, right? I'm saying, yeah, you got the program early, you got access early and you got a head start, and maybe you've done, week 1 to 4. That's good for you. Right, continue. But for most people, this is literally week 2 or 3 maximum.
Yeah. So when is the program supposed to end? I just want to be sure. So I'm not after differences in paces or
Okay.
whatever.
So the program
Just want to
most
be
likely
sure.
will be ending in March. I haven't looked at the calendar to even know what specific date it is. But
Okay.
we started marking the attendance for the virtual sessions last week. And in that attendance, we marked it as week 1. So this will be week 2. So maybe I'll just try to clarify from the managers, if that's how we'll be counting. So if that's how we'll be counting, then, we'll be done, sometime in March.
All right.
Any further questions before I, move on to address a couple other things and, project structure and the physical meetups? No one has other questions. Okay. So
Hello, I was trying to speak. You're not giving me attention.
I asked earlier because you're
I said
muted.
I wanted to talk. I've been trying to reach you for so many times since you've started, and you've been
Okay, go ahead with your
ignoring me.
question.
Like I said, if you can, maybe on your DM, I can send you so that you can get me linked to that HTML, CSS, and Java. This is so I can have access to the videos and materials,
So
please.
when you the last message I shared, I said send a picture of the entire view of the laptop. Let me
I will do that, but we have been doing this back and front, and I'm getting tired of
you haven't
No,
sent
no,
that
hold on. I think I've been complaining about this. Thank God we'll be having a physical class. So, like I said, if I can send you, I've sent you a DM before on your WhatsApp. If I can send you, and you can send me videos or materials on HTML,
Oh, wait,
CSS, and whatever,
sorry, clarity.
then
Are
I
you
can
saying
help
other
me.
videos?
Yes, that can start for beginner, everything about it, so that I can study it on my own too. It's still a way progress.
Okay, so that's
It's,
perfectly fine.
it's still way progress than recurring, snapping for more than 1 week. We are still on the same thing. Yeah, at least I have your DM.
But I want to understand. I can definitely share. I will even share that one to the group.
Yeah,
so that other
better
people
from everything from the beginning. So you help us on our private time. Like I've been complaining about access of the materials instead
Oh,
of
yeah,
me
hold
to be
on.
clicking and clicking.
So
If
what
you
I'm
have
trying
all
to
those things,
understand is
put it
what
on this thing
is
so that you can learn it. I'm
what's the
tired of
blocker
it.
with the old school platform?
Sir?
So I was trying to help solve. So like I said, right, I'll share, other external materials, maybe on YouTube.
Yes, it must not be
Yeah, that's fine.
old school,
Yeah, but I
yes.
also wanted to just understand what the issue is, so that I can also escalate it to the guys and say students are having issues accessing videos on the old school platform. So that is why I said, when I said send a picture, you sent me the same picture twice, and I asked if that was a laptop, you said yes. So I said, okay, send me a full view, right? Let me understand the orientation. Maybe it's because the screen is not wide enough. You can't see the whole view or something, so that I understand what to report to the old school support and the program managers that students are having issues accessing the platform, right? Because it's not even a general issue. It's unique to
So
you.
that's
You
why I
have to
was saying
understand
that I
what's
don't want to
happening.
focus on that. If you have other videos on the beginning of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, just put it so that we can learn it on our own, please.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's
I'll
the
send
same
that
thing,
to you
please.
today.
Yes, please,
No
please.
problem.
Thank you.
Okay. So I think someone mentioned something about CSS in the chat. Is it Okonlawo, Sophia? This is still on the call because I can't even see the participants. All right, but I'll just address it. Right. So the person said, CSS is confusing. Yeah, it's because it's the first time you're seeing it. Right. So just think about, oh, okay, there is your hand. Yeah, go on. Your hand is up. So do you want to speak?
Yeah, it's actually confusing. I'm not even. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Okay. You know what? Maybe what I'll do is I can spend the next 15 minutes giving you, or 30 minutes giving you like an intro to CSS. That should help you provide some clarity. But think back, right? And see, you guys might think that all these speeches that I'm giving you people is not important. Trust me, it's equally as important as just diving in and writing code. Right? It's equally as important. You'd figure that out over time. But what I was even going to say is think back to every time that you've learned about something new, technical or non-technical, right? The first time it seems very confusing. And then with repeated exposure, it starts to make sense bit by bit, bit by bit, bit by bit. And over time, you build mastery in that thing. Right. So that's why I said this is not even like something that is unique to just technical subjects alone. So, for example, I don't watch sports, right? I mean, I follow like the news and everything, but I don't actively watch any sports. But now I'm trying to actively get into watching Formula One, right? So you guys know Formula One, the racing, the racing sports. And they have a bunch of rules that, the first time, I'm looking at all these rules about how the race is supposed to work. They have rules around the type of tires that your racing cars can have. They have rules around, sorry, can anyone hear me? Okay, so Motunde is unique to you. So they have rules around how because in a Formula One race, there are 3 drivers and they take turns. They have rules around how you combine, those drivers. And the first time I'm watching a Formula One race and all these things, because it's so much information being thrown at me and I'm just confused, right? And the second time, it makes slightly more sense, but I'm still overwhelmed and I'm still confused about a few things happening in the race. And, I keep watching it, I keep watching it, I keep watching it. And over time, it has started to make a lot more sense to me. But even then, like there are sometimes a few things will happen and I'll be like, oh, what just happened there? I don't get it. And I'll maybe go and look it up, read about it, or, just ignore. But for each race I watch, the sports makes more sense to me. It's exactly the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. So let me share my screen and give you, more like a brief intro to, CSS, and hopefully that gives you enough clarity to, continue with your videos. Right. Let me show you guys something. So this is a project that I'm currently working on. All right. If I do, sorry, Just ignore everything. No? Give me a second. All right. There, there is a total of almost 80,000 lines of code in this project, right? Mostly written by me. Now, this project is in React. But at the end of the day, right, if you look at each individual line in the project, you still notice that it's a bunch of HTML and CSS at the end of the day. This is form. This is form label. This is inputs. Right? This is a select dropdown. This is a select content. Another form label selects what else? A box, a flex, a label. So boxes are like divs. And then we have buttons, right? We have text, which in HTML is paragraph. But like, what's my point? My point is the reason why these foundations are important is because no matter how advanced what you are building is, at the end of the day, when you look at any complex application, it's still made up of what? Text, buttons, paragraph, colors. So don't try to rush through these fundamentals just because you're trying to get to the point where you can start to build things. When I was brought to the program, the first thing I said is, at the end of this program, there's no way somebody who has not written code before will suddenly be able to build a full application. It's not just possible because this thing takes a lot more time. So you have to be patient with yourself, right? And you have to not feel discouraged when something doesn't stick in your head just after watching a 5 minute video 2 times, right? You keep going back to it, you keep going back to it. You can tell me on the group that I just finished the video on CSS Flexbox or CSS margins and I don't understand it. I need another video. Sometimes a different perspective can help, right? So that being said, um, I'll try to zoom in a bit in case my screen is too tiny. This is HTML, which is this is like the fundamental structure of every web page, right? And this is essentially HTML is basically responsible. What's it called? It's called hypertext markup language. Emphasis on markup language. In fact, emphasis on markup alone, right? Because that's all it is for putting the structure, the skeletal structure of your page, and all of that goes into body. So feel free to stop me and ask any questions, right? I'm no longer seeing the Zoom interface, so I might not see the chats. So if you have questions, unmute and speak. So HTML is responsible for the skeletal structure of your page, right? If you've covered anything in HTML at all, so if I use any HTML tag that you've not seen before, just let me know. But div is basically how you group things into sections, right? So let's say, okay, you know what? Let me go to Netflix. Right. Let's say you're trying to design, I'm trying to design this first section of Netflix, right? Just this first part. You have the entire section that has a background image. You have Netflix logo. You have a button here that says sign in. You have this text, you have another text, you have another text. How do you categorize them? That's essentially what divs are for, putting related items together, right? So let's say, first of all, you have this header, right, with the logo and the button. You can create header, right, and maybe an image that would, be a link. So this will usually be like a link to the logo. So let me see. Okay. I don't have it. So this would be something like this, logo.png, right? And then on the, let me try to put this side by side so I'm not switching screen and confusing you guys. So can everyone still see my screen? Both Netflix and VS Code.
Yes.
Okay. So you have an image on the header. What else do you have in the header? You have a button that says sign in, right? So you add the button. So that's your header. So you can also leave comments. Comments are a way comments are a way for you to leave notes in your code and say the header section. Why is this important? Because when someone else comes to the code and the code is 80,000 lines of code, like the project I just showed you, comments can help them understand what's going on in certain places. And it's not just for other people, it's also for you. Because when you come back to a code that I wrote 6 months ago, it will feel like it's a stranger that wrote it. So this is how you leave comments in HTML. In CSS and JavaScript, it's slightly different. You see that both there. What's next? You have a different section, right? So you can put out in a div too. So let's say there is an H1 for heading, right? Like again, if you see a tag that you've not seen before, let me know. What's in this H1? So H1 is usually like the first big text you see on any page. Unlimited TVs, web shows, and more. So let's say we have an H2 for the next text. And the paragraph for the final one. Right? And that's that. Now you can also nest elements, right? And have a div inside another div. Now what's next after my text? I have an input and what? Another button, right? These two are buttons. This sign in is a button, get started is a button, but they look different. Why do they look different? We'll get to that shortly. So we have inputs, and inputs can take placeholder, right? So placeholder is this text that you see inside before you start typing. That's what it is. So that email address, and then you have the second button, right? That then says set. So this is the structure of this hero section. Or am I missing anything? No. Right. Okay. So yeah, this is the structure of the page. I just have to save this file. So I can save this, let's say in documents, or no, dev, site dev, just to create a folder called 3MTT, and the 3MTT, I can save this inside. So on VS Code, I can open that folder I just created. All right, so you see, now I have my 3MTT folder open, and I can see the file I created, right? So if I click on it, I'll see the file, but I want to rename this file. So I click on rename, and I call it index. So index, index.anything is always the entry point, right? So when I open this application I'm building, the index of HTML is always the first page you see. So I can open this in the browser. Alright. So this is our web page. This is our web page. So you can see our image is not loading because we did not put the appropriate URL. We have our sign in button, we have the text, the second text, third text, this and this. So technically, we have the structure of this page, of this section on the Netflix page. So you can see what I'm saying, that it doesn't matter how complicated an app looks, right? At the base, it's still just all these simple elements and tags that are there. So any question up until this point? Any question, especially the person that, you know, I can't remember your name. We're all good. Let's respond. Again, this is not a TED talk. Because if we are the ones that you're complaining about not having
hello,
interactive sessions, but in the
hello,
interactive
sir.
sessions, all of you will be on mute. Yeah, go on.
Hello, sir. So me, I'm just watching. No, I'm not. I'm just watching what you're watching. I don't know this
Yeah,
one.
that's because you've not even started. All right.
Yes.
Yeah. So don't worry. When you consume the intro to HTML, all of this will make sense to you. This is
Okay.
specifically for
Okay.
the person that said
Okay.
CSS was
Okay, sir.
confusing. Yeah.
Okay, sir.
So, but all you need to take away from this is what HTML looks like. And HTML is how you define the structure of any website, web application, or whatever you are building on the web. So if you look at it, right, this is what we're trying to replicate. If I go to what we've done, this is it. Right, so the structure is there. Even though it doesn't look like it doesn't have the colors, it doesn't have the positions, but the structure is there. Right. So a div is just a square. H1 is the big text. H2 is the smaller text. Paragraph is the normal text. So imagine in a word editor, right? So if I go to drgoogle.com, right, and I'm typing, or this could be Microsoft Word or anything. So you can see normal text. This is a paragraph, but I can do H1, right? Heading 1. So that's basically the representation of this in HTML. And I can do heading 2. Heading 2. All right, so you can see it's just like the H1, but it's slightly smaller. So you have heading 1, 2, 3, up until 6. Heading 3. So to put a paragraph on the page, you do P. To put a heading 1, you put H1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. So that's how you kind of like define structure. So, that's all that you need to take away from this. So by the time you now start your HTML videos, most of this would now be clearer. Makes sense. Now, how do you then apply, stylistic and visual attributes to what you are doing? That's where CSS comes in. All right. That's where CSS comes in. So CSS is how you put colors, how you put positions, how you put fonts, and how you put all these things on your page. That's CSS. So look at this. All right, so let's say I want to add some CSS to this page. You can do that using the style tag. So ideally, you would write it in a different file, right? But you can also I'll just do it inside same file. for simplicity so that we can see everything in one place. Now, how does CSS work? The structure of CSS is this. So this is the structure. Elements, property, and value. Now, what's the element? The element is, okay, no, not element, actually, selector. So what's the selector? The selector is how, because let's say, here now, I say the property is background color, and I say set the background color to red. How would CSS know, okay, yeah, you want to set background color to red, but background color of what? Right? Then there are many things on this page. On this page, there's an image, there's 2 buttons, there's a bunch of text, there's an input. So what exactly are you trying to set the background color of? That's essentially what the selector is. And there are different ways to select things in CSS, right? The first one is using the elements. And by the elements, I mean all these tags, all these HTML elements, you can just select them and apply styles. So if I say button, what happened to the 2 buttons on the page? Their colors just became red. All right. Their colors just became red. So this is essentially CSS at the fundamental level. This is what CSS is. You select something, you apply a property and give it a value, and you see it take effect on the page. So we just change the background color of all the buttons because we said button. So what happens is CSS goes to the page, looks for all the buttons and turns their background color to red. Now, what if I want just one button to be red and I want the other one to be green? I need a way to tell CSS that this is the specific button, right, that I want to apply this thing to. And how do you do that? You can give it a class, right? So don't stress too much about the naming of all these things. That's what confuses people the most. Just think about it like this. A class is a way for you to identify specific elements using the name. So what should we call this class? Let's call it sign in button. And let's give this one another class and call it get started button, right? Just because that's what they do. So most times when you're naming things, try to give it a meaningful name based on what they are doing. So now I have classes. How can I then tell CSS that, okay, this button of this specific class is what I want to target, right? So now I can say dot signing button, right? And I save. Now only the signing button is red. And the second one is not red. I can copy this. And I can say dot get started button for print. So you can see. So now CSS is saying, oh, you want to style a button, but it's not just all buttons, the buttons of these specific class names, right? And I can apply, different styles. So I can give this one a width to make it wider of 200 pixels. And you can see that button is wider. So at the base, at the core, this is what CSS basically is. That's what it does. When you define the structure of your page in HTML, CSS is how you apply styling and colors and adjust the size and all these things. And trust me, CSS is one of the hardest things to learn, even way more than JavaScript sometimes, because JavaScript can be hard sometimes, but once you are good at it, you are good at it. But you see CSS, eh, it can just something might just be somewhere. You would have applied color of green to it and it will be showing you yellow. And you'll be wondering, why is this button yellow? and you have to keep checking line by line, debugging, using the Chrome dev tools, check different stuffs until you figure out where it was happening. Right. So, because one funny thing that usually happens is, let me do this. So exactly same style as what we have here, right? But I'll give this one yellow, and now you can see it's yellow. So because CSS looks at this and it's saying in this line 15, on line 15, you're trying to, apply a background color of green to the get started button. But on line 19, you are doing the exact same thing. So which one should I pick? Right. So it's like, I'll just take the last one. Now, imagine that this file is so long, right? The file is just so long. And you are looking at this, right? And you don't know that, somewhere else, somebody else, maybe you're working on this project with 5 people, someone else has come to do this, and then you're wondering why this is not applying. Now, which tutorial or which class anywhere is going to help you solve that problem? Nowhere, nobody. So it's going to be up to you to sit down and continue to bang your head on the table until you find out why this button is yellow, even though, yeah, you're telling it to be green. And then you check and check and check. Sometimes take a day, a week, a month on the same problem before you now eventually now figure out that, oh, this is where the problem is coming from. Somewhere else, somebody has set background color of yellow, and that's why my background color of green is not working. And then you comment it out or you delete it completely, and then you save the file, and everything is right with the world again. So there is no class anywhere, right? Like if computer science students, and I know we like to trash Nigeria a lot, but trust me, this problem about computer science and programming and software engineering is not specific to Nigeria. I have a friend, he's just graduated from a university in Canada where he did computer science, and he's still coming to me to say, please let me work on projects with you because they did not teach us anything. Now, is it that they didn't teach them anything? No, but it's because he didn't combine it with self-development and personal development, because that's where 80% of what you're supposed to know would come from. Right. So it's not that, oh, we can't come to this class and I teach. Right. I can teach. Like for 2 years, I taught in a physical boot camp in Lagos. Right. And that used to be weekend. The only difference is that one was literally morning to night. So 9 to 6. Right. And we'll take breaks in between to go and eat. We'll come back and continue writing code. But this one that is just a 2 to 3 hour session once a week is not going to be enough to push you, right? And even if we go with that pattern, I call my teacher that I can teach for 2 to 3 hours. What happens after the 8 weeks? Would your programming journey just die because there's no more class? So you have to actually know how to, sit down and make all it. Just consume it, consume it, consume it. You're stuck somewhere, put it on the group. Like you guys have seen, there's like people like Harry, who has some experience. There's people like Ayomide who has some experience. There's a different guy that has even built a streaming platform, and he's just on the platform because he wants to, network with people. All those kind of people on the group can, answer your questions. And it doesn't mean that they don't have problems. Ari is somewhere in JavaScript right now. He's going to have a JavaScript issue, and other people more advanced than him, would answer his questions. So I can't remember, who said, okay, yeah, it was Okanawa. So does this make sense to you? All right. So there's like, at the core, this is essentially what CSS is and what it does. CSS is just all about mastering, what the attributes do. The hardest thing in CSS is the layout. Okay, how do I structure a page? When it's on mobile view, when they look at it on a phone, it should look one way. When it's on desktop, it should look a different way. That's the hardest thing in CSS. But for everything else, right? Let's do like a minor experiment. You're just starting your CSS journey now. And Sofia, right? I can't hear you.
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so like this is, you're basically just getting started with CSS, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go to a very advanced code base that you've never seen before. And I'm going to just try to ask you a few questions, and we'll just see if they make sense to you or not. So let me open this accordion code. Let me find one. Or let's go to the button components. Look at this button components now. There's like a bunch of things here that you probably don't understand, that will not make sense to you. But let's look at the CSS. Even though how this CSS is written is, maybe slightly different. But when you see font weight, even though you might not be sure, you probably know that, okay, this applies to how the boldness of the text, right? Or when you see color, or when you see background, BG, BG is, in this case, is the equivalent of the background color that you just saw. So, over time, you'll see that all these tools, they all have like different variants, different flavors of how you write them, right? W is short form for width, right? But at the end of the day, it's all still, the same fundamentals. So don't worry that, just, the first few videos, you're not yet able to put an entire web page together. It's not going to work like that. Start from learning how to, okay, just style a button, right? Maybe I'll drop an assignment for that, share like a few elements that you can style. But yeah, don't worry, over time, it would make sense. Over time, it would make sense.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So I'm going to, encourage us to, like I said, I perfectly understand what it means to be working, maybe have a job, because just because you want to learn how to code doesn't mean you will not eat or you don't have responsibilities. You still have to manage, trying to build a career and living. But I encourage us to, make time out, right? As long as you have a laptop, because that's like the biggest blocker I can think of. If you don't have a laptop, then that's going to be slightly tough. So as long as you have a laptop and you have access to the internet, consume your videos, right? If you watch any topic in the old school videos that don't make sense to you, drop a message on the group, tag me, say this specific video doesn't make sense. If I have the time, I'll jump on a call with you and explain it. If I don't have the time, I'll send you a link to a different course, a different video on that same topic, and you can digest it, right? And by the time you put it into practice, 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, there are some things that won't even make sense to you until like 2 years later, maybe when you use it in a different project after your confidence and experience have, leveled up. That's when it would start to make sense to you. All right, so please, push, because I don't know if you still have access to the old school dashboard at the end of the program. So try to, I'm not saying rush, you can't rush, but let's try to get devote time. And again, this goes beyond the program. Even at the end of the program, like this program is like a drop of water in the ocean that is your journey. And let me share my screen again, show you guys, what the roadmap looks like. Sorry, is my screen visible? So I also dropped this on the group, right? Roadmap.sh. They have roadmaps for basically everybody, right? So look at Harry, for example. Harry already knows, some HTML, some CSS, and maybe is currently learning some, basic JavaScript. But look at all the things he doesn't know. Can you see how plenty there are? And this is only front end. Only front end. It's not even back end, it's not mobile. And for me, I know front end. And I don't just know front end. I know a bunch of front end frameworks. I write React, I write Vue, I write Svelte. I do back end in Node, in Python, in Golang. Databases, SQL, MongoDB. I do mobile apps, Android, iOS. How did I manage to know all of all these things? It's just because repeated exposure over time, right? And trust me, you don't even need to be a technical person. It's not about, I was good in maths in secondary school, so I know how to write code. It doesn't work that way, right? Some of the most successful software engineers that I have in my circle right now, they came from career paths that were not even technical, like at all. I literally have a carpenter that became a software engineer, right? So it's not for, it's not for only geniuses, but it is ridiculously difficult, but it gets easier with time. More time, more time, more time. And it's not a, how do they say it? It's not a lap or it's not a race, it's a marathon or something like that, because it goes on forever, right? And it's like one of the fastest changing industries I know of, because tomorrow a new tool is out there, tomorrow a new tool is out there, tomorrow a new tool is out there, just because, technology keeps moving and you have to move with it. So, the journey is long. So please stop thinking about your journey in the context of this program alone, right? Move at your own pace and utilize the parts of the program that would help you move at, continue to move at your own pace. So that being said, the physical classes, right, apparently is mandatory by the program. So, that has been scheduled to happen on Fridays. So if you have any issues with that, you have to, like Kazi Cage that is in Kano. I'm in Abuja, by the way, Kazi Cage. So if you happen to, be in Abuja at any point, reach out. That's if you're still on this call. Yeah, it dropped off. So, I wouldn't be physically present, although I think I'll be in Lagos in February. So I might come to maybe one or two of the physical sessions. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, so I think we would implement Harry's idea, right? In terms of like peer programming and doing stuff in groups, at least for those that are serious. That's what the physical meetups on Friday will be dedicated for. Working on projects, with other people, with a group of maybe 2-3 people that are on similar levels, right? So what we'll just do is, after the session, everyone drop where they are in the coursework, right? So, oh, my name is XYZ. I'm currently in week 1 or week 2, and this is what I've covered. Or I'm in week 4, like Harry, right? And I've covered HTML, CSS, and I'm currently covering, OOP in JavaScript. Because I mean, if I know OOP in JavaScript, it means you've learned about variables and functions and all of these things. So I can look at everyone's responses and I can group us to meet on Friday, and each group would have a different assignment. Does that work? And specifically to Harry this time, is that also satisfactory?
Oh yeah, that would be nice. And I'm so sorry, I need to buttress a little bit. So project, I mean, doesn't necessarily mean something really big.
Yeah,
Because one of the boot camps I attended, I think that was just 2 months, but right from week 1, both for absolute beginners, to further introduce you to HTML, each of the elements. Then, though we are working with what's it called? I can't remember. So what they do basically is that they will now give you a kind of a documentation of what you have to do, a guide. Like what you just did now, though what you did is a bit advanced, I would say. That's for absolute beginners. If you tell them to maybe bring out that kind of structure. So something small like that, after today's class, you can say, okay, try your hands on this. And maybe if you encounter any challenge within the week, you can show me. So try to bring up a button like this and different elements. If you want to try your hands on styling, okay, do this for those beginners, then show me maybe next class. Something like that might still work for the virtual session. So because what I'm saying is most persons, they just need something to motivate them. One thing about coding, if you don't have anything pushing you, you would have other activities to give your attention to. That's for beginners. They might just want to give up. I don't have anything pulling me to go get my system and try something. So some might even stay on the bed and watch video and feel they have it upstairs, but not until you try to, okay, from our technical mentor, so we should try our hands on this. So they might be excited and motivated to want to try and say, okay, let me just bring up something like this, even if it's flex. That's advanced though. Sorry, I'm mentioning. That's okay. Just work on this. I need 3 buses and align them this way and just kind of styling, just basic things like that. Then
Okay,
for the physical training, that would be nice also. Then I guess the venue will be communicated to us subsequently.
yeah. So the venue definitely, I think it's somewhere in Ikeja. Yeah, somewhere around Ikeja, but the venue will be communicated.
All right. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think that would basically, be it. Again, if you want to reach out, sure, go. Yeah, if you want to reach out to me personally, right, please do so. And hopefully I'll be able to assist with whatever, issues that anyone is struggling with. All right, guys, so we'll continue the convo on the group. And please take the attendance. Take the attendance, is quite key. So if you haven't done that, please do that.
Hello, sir.